I'm Brooke Miller, 31, and I felt my blood run cold as I stared at the video on my phone. There was my sister Madison, the sister who hadn't invited me to her wedding 3 days earlier, being slapped by her new husband Derek while guests gasped in horror. Our 2-year estrangement suddenly seemed irrelevant as I watched her stunned face, her mascara-streaked cheeks. I had warned her about him. I had seen the red flags no one else noticed. Now my vindication came with the most sickening feeling imaginable. Should I call her? Would she even answer? The phone shook in my trembling hands. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And please subscribe if you want to hear more real-life stories about family, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. Madison and I weren't just sisters. We were best friends for most of our lives. Only 2 years apart, we shared everything: bedroom, clothes, secrets. Our mother dressed us in matching outfits until I put my foot down at 12, declaring I needed my own identity. Still, almost every night until I left for college, we'd stay up whispering in the dark about our dreams, our crushes, our fears. We balanced each other perfectly. I was the cautious, responsible one who made lists and worried about consequences. Madison was spontaneous, charismatic, and fearless. You plan, I'll bring the fun, she'd always say before dragging me into some adventure I'd pretend to resist but secretly enjoy. When I was too afraid to audition for the school musical, she submitted my name anyway. When she forgot to study for finals, I had already created color-coded notes for both of us. We were different but complementary, like puzzle pieces designed to fit together. Everything changed when our parents announced their divorce. I was 15. Madison was 13. Dad had been having an affair with his receptionist, the oldest cliché in the book, and moved out within a week of telling us. Mom fell apart completely. She would go to work, come home, and cry herself to sleep. I took over running the household, cooking meals, helping Madison with homework, making sure bills were paid. I became the responsible one not by choice but by necessity. Madison dealt with the divorce differently. She rebelled. Her grades plummeted. She started hanging out with a rougher crowd, coming home late smelling like cigarettes and alcohol. When I tried to talk to her about it, she'd scream, "You're not my mother!" She was right, of course. I was just a kid myself, suddenly forced to be the adult. Our divergent paths continued through college. I stayed local, attending state university so I could live at home and continue supporting Mom, who had developed anxiety and depression after the divorce. I studied education, wanting the stability of a teaching career. Madison, despite her rebellious phase, scored high on her SATs and got accepted to Eastland University, a prestigious school across the country. Mom somehow pulled herself together enough to drive her to the airport. I remember watching Madison walk through the security gate, feeling both proud and abandoned. During those college years, our calls became less frequent. Her life was filled with sorority events, international study programs, and internships at glamorous companies. My life revolved around classes, my part-time job at a daycare, and making sure Mom took her medication. When she'd come home for holidays, Madison would bring stories of exotic spring breaks and famous guest lecturers. I'd share anecdotes about my third graders and the community garden I'd helped start. She'd listen politely, but I could see her eyes glazing over. After graduation, the gulf between us widened further. I secured a teaching position at Westfield Elementary, bought a modest condo near Mom, and settled into a comfortable routine. Madison landed a marketing job at a major cosmetics company in the city, complete with a sleek downtown apartment and expense account. She dated artists, entrepreneurs, and once briefly, a minor celebrity. I had a few serious relationships that fizzled out, often because I couldn't balance caring for Mom, my teaching job, and a boyfriend. We still loved each other, but judgment had crept in on both sides. I thought Madison had become materialistic, valuing designer labels and Instagram-worthy experiences over substance. She found my life provincial and uninspiring. "Don't you ever want more?" she asked once after I declined her invitation to visit her in the city because it was parent-teacher conference week. The question stung because sometimes In my darker moments, I asked myself the same thing. Then came Christmas 3 years ago. Madison announced she was bringing someone special home, Derek Williams, a financial advisor she'd been dating for 3 months. "He's the one," she texted me beforehand. "Don't be your usual skeptical self." I promised to be on my best behavior, eager to see my sister genuinely excited about someone after years of casual dating. Looking back, I wish I had trusted my instincts from the moment he walked through the door. Derek Williams arrived at our mother's house with an armful of expensive gifts and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Tall, conventionally handsome, and impeccably dressed, he charmed Mom immediately with compliments about her home and questions about her antique collection. "Such a gentleman," she whispered to me in the kitchen, while Madison beamed beside her boyfriend, looking to him for approval after every comment she made. I noticed it during dinner, the way Derek subtly controlled the conversation. When Madison started telling a story about their weekend trip to wine country, Derek placed his hand over hers. "Sweetheart, you're mixing up the wineries," he corrected with a chuckle. "It was Oak Ridge where we had the Cabernet, not Westfield." Madison immediately deferred to him, laughing at herself. "Derek remembers everything." "My memory is terrible," she said apologetically. It was a small moment, but something about it bothered me. The Madison I knew would have playfully argued her point or made a joke. This Madison simply yielded. Later, while doing dishes, I finally had a moment alone with my sister. "So, you really like this guy, huh?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "He's amazing, Brooke. He takes care of everything. You wouldn't believe the restaurant reservations he gets us. The people he knows." Her eyes sparkled, but not in the way they used to when she was truly excited about something. "He seems nice," I said carefully. "A little controlling, maybe?" The sparkle vanished. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing bad. Just that he corrected your story at dinner, and you immediately backed down. That's not like you." Madison's face hardened. He was right about the winery. Why would I argue when I was wrong? I'm just saying the Madison I know would have at least debated it. Well, maybe I've grown up. Maybe I don't need to be right all the time. She scrubbed a plate aggressively. "Not everyone wants to argue about every little thing like you do." "That's not fair," I protested. "You know what's not fair? You judging my boyfriend within hours of meeting him." She lowered her voice. "Is it so hard to believe someone successful and handsome is interested in me? Are you jealous because your last date was with the divorced dad from your school?" Her words stung. "That's a terrible thing to say." "Then stop trying to find problems where there aren't any." She dried her hands and walked away, leaving me with a sink full of dishes and a growing knot of worry. Over the next few months, the signs accumulated. Derek called constantly when Madison was out with me. Our monthly sister brunch stretched to 6 weeks, then 8, because Derek had made other plans for her. When she did meet me, she checked her phone anxiously, always texting him updates on when she'd be home. "Don't you think it's a bit much, having to report your whereabouts?" I asked during one such brunch, watching her tap out another message. "He worries about me," Madison replied defensively. "It's sweet." "There's a difference between caring and controlling," I said. Madison put her phone down. "You don't understand because you're single. When you're in a serious relationship, you consider your partner's feelings." "I've had serious relationships," I countered. "None where I needed permission to have breakfast with my sister." "It's not permission, it's courtesy," she snapped. One by one, Madison's friendships began to fade. Her college roommate Claire visited the city and Madison canceled last minute because Derek had surprised her with concert tickets. Her work friends stopped inviting her to happy hours because Derek always found a reason she couldn't attend. She dropped her weekly yoga class because Derek thought the instructor paid too much attention to her. The incident that finally pushed me to confront her directly happened at her 29th birthday dinner. Mom and I had planned a small celebration at Madison's favorite restaurant. Derek insisted on joining, though it had originally been planned as a ladies' night. Madison arrived wearing a fitted black dress, elegant but not particularly revealing. Derek took one look at her and frowned. "Is that what you're wearing?" he asked quietly, but loud enough for me to hear. Madison instantly looked uncertain. What's wrong with it? Nothing. If you want every guy in the restaurant staring at you. His tone was light, joking even, but his eyes were cold. I just think you could class it up a bit. Mom didn't seem to notice the tension, but I watched my confident sister deflate before my eyes. I have a cardigan in the car, she mumbled, handing Derek her purse so she could go get it. Once she left, I couldn't hold back. That dress was perfectly appropriate. Derek raised an eyebrow. I'm just looking out for her. Madison doesn't always realize how she comes across. She comes across as beautiful and professional. She always has. You don't see how men look at her, he said dismissively. I'm protecting her. From what? Compliments? Confidence? I challenged. His smile tightened. You know, Brooke, Madison told me you might be difficult. She said you've always been a bit judgmental, unable to be happy for her success. The accusation knocked the wind out of me. Had my sister really said that? When Madison returned wearing the cardigan, despite the warm restaurant, she avoided my eyes all night. I realized with growing dread that Derek had positioned himself between us and he was winning. The engagement announcement came via group text just 13 months after they started dating. Derek proposed, setting a date for next summer. SO exited. Multiple exclamation points were very unlike Madison, who had once mocked me for overusing them. Attached was a photo of a massive diamond ring that looked heavy on her slender finger. I called immediately, but the call went to voicemail. She texted back, "Can't talk now. Celebrating with Derek's family. Call you tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into 3 days later, and when we finally spoke, Madison sounded breathless, rushing through details about venues and flowers. The wedding was being planned for just 6 months away, not the summer timeframe she'd initially mentioned. That's really soon, I remarked. Any particular reason for the rush? When you know, she said, repeating what sounded like one of Derek's phrases. Plus, Derek says the market might take a downturn next year, so financially it makes more sense to do it sooner. Throughout the planning process, Derek's control became more evident. He vetoed Madison's first choice of venue because it wasn't prestigious enough. He selected the photographer, insisting on someone who had shot his cousin's wedding despite Madison preferring a photojournalistic style. When she mentioned wanting a sunset ceremony on the beach, Derek laughed and said they weren't California hippies. Mom, thrilled that her younger daughter had found such a stable, successful man, saw nothing wrong with his involvement. He's so organized, she gushed to me. And generous, too, his parents are contributing a significant amount. What she didn't say, but I knew, was that neither of us could have afforded the lavish wedding Derek was orchestrating. I tried to stay positive, to focus on Madison's happiness rather than my concerns about Derek. But when she called crying because he dismissed her favorite wedding dress as too princessy and steered her toward a sleek, modern gown more to his taste, I couldn't hold back any longer. Madison, can we meet for coffee? Just us? I asked. She hesitated. Derek and I are meeting with the caterer. Please. It's important. We met at a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. Madison looked thinner than usual, with dark circles under her eyes partially concealed by makeup. Are you sleeping okay? I asked, as we settled with our drinks. Wedding planning is stressful, she said with a tight smile. What did you want to talk about? I took a deep breath. I'm concerned about you and Derek. Her smile vanished. Here we go. Please just listen, I urged. Since you've been with him, you've changed. You've lost touch with friends. You second-guess yourself constantly. You've given up things you love because they don't fit his vision of who you should be. That's not true, she protested. But her voice lacked conviction. The Madison I know would never let someone else choose her wedding dress. She wouldn't change her dinner order because her boyfriend thought she'd gain weight from pasta. She wouldn't cancel plans with her sister because her boyfriend suddenly decided they needed to visit his parents. Madison's eyes welled with tears. You don't understand. Derek wants what's best for me. For us. Or what's best for Derek, I countered gently. Has he compromised on anything? Has he shown interest in what matters to you? Stop it, she hissed. You've been against him from day one. You can't stand that I'm happy, that I found someone while you're still alone. The accusation hurt, but I pressed on. This isn't about me. It's about the way he isolates and controls you. These are warning signs, Madison. Warning signs of what? She demanded. Say it. Of emotional abuse, I said quietly. I've been reading about it. And she stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. How dare you? Derek loves me. He's done nothing but take care of me. And you have the nerve to call him abusive because he has opinions. Madison, please. No, she interrupted, tears now streaming down her face. You've always thought you know best. Ever since Mom and Dad split, you've acted like you're so much wiser than everyone else. But you're just bitter and lonely. And you can't stand that I found happiness. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's not true. I love you. I'm worried about you. If you loved me, you'd support my choices instead of trying to poison my relationship. She grabbed her purse. I don't need this negativity before my wedding. I reached for her hand. Madison, please. I'm sorry if I came on too strong. Derek was right, she said coldly, pulling away. He said you'd try to come between us because you can't stand to see me happy. He said I might have to make a choice. My blood ran cold. What choice? Her gaze was unflinching. He said, it's your sister or me. I told him that was ridiculous, that you'd come around. But maybe he was right. He's isolating you from people who care about you, I said desperately. That's what abusers do. I think we need some space, Brooke, she said, her voice suddenly tired. I can't deal with this right now. That conversation was the beginning of the end. Madison stopped answering my calls and responding to my texts. When I reached out to Mom, she said Madison was just busy with wedding planning and I should give her space. I sent a heartfelt email apologizing for upsetting her, saying I would support her choices even if I had concerns, but received only a brief reply. Thanks. Need some time. I tried everything, sending her favorite cookies to her office, leaving voicemails reminding her of funny memories from our childhood, even having flowers delivered on the anniversary of our dad leaving, a day we'd always checked in with each other. Nothing broke through the wall Derek had built between us. The final blow came when Mom called to discuss her outfit for the wedding. I'm thinking the blue dress I wore to Cousin Jennifer's wedding, she said casually. What are you planning to wear? My heart stopped. Mom, I haven't received an invitation. There was an uncomfortable silence. Oh, she finally said. I assumed. Let me talk to Madison. Later that day, she called back, her voice apologetic. Madison says, given the tension between you two, she thinks it would be better if you didn't attend. She doesn't want any drama on her special day. Drama. As if my genuine concern for her well-being was nothing more than attention-seeking. I cried for hours after that call, mourning not just my exclusion from the wedding, but the loss of the sister I'd grown up with, the person who knew me best in the world. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I watched from the sidelines as Madison's social media filled with photos of her bridal shower, organized by Derek's sister, her bachelorette party in Vegas, planned by Derek's cousin, and countless wedding preparations. In each photo she smiled, but I knew my sister's real smile, the one that made her eyes crinkle and showed her slightly crooked front tooth. This smile was practiced, perfect, and empty. The night before the wedding, I sat alone in my condo with a glass of wine, scrolling through old photos of us together, wondering how we had come to this point. I considered showing up anyway, making a scene, demanding she listen to me. But I knew it would only push her further away. So I stayed home, hoping against hope that I was wrong about Derek, that he would make her happy, that someday she would let me back into her life. I had no idea how soon and how tragically that reunion would come. On Madison's wedding day, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest that made it hard to breathe. My sister was getting married, and I wasn't there to zip up her dress, to tell her how beautiful she looked, to stand beside her as she took this momentous step. Instead, I was alone in my condo, trying desperately to distract myself from the fact that for the first time in our lives, I was completely shut out of a major milestone in Madison's life. I tried everything to keep my mind occupied. I cleaned my entire apartment, scrubbing the bathroom grout with a toothbrush. I graded 2 weeks worth of spelling tests. I even attempted to lose myself in a new Netflix series. But every few minutes, I found myself checking the time, imagining what would be happening at the ceremony. She's walking down the aisle now. They're exchanging vows. They're having their first dance. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't stop myself from checking social media. Mom had promised not to post anything until after the wedding out of respect for my feelings, but Derek's family had no such restrictions. His cousin Amber was posting Instagram stories throughout the day, Madison getting her makeup done, the bridesmaids, all Derek's relatives or friends' wives, in matching robes, the elegant venue with its crystal chandeliers and satin-draped chairs. Madison looked stunning in every shot, but there was a tightness around her eyes that perhaps only I could recognize. At 6:48 p.m., my phone rang. It was Mom, her voice hushed and strained. She was calling from the bathroom at the reception. "The ceremony was lovely," she said, clearly trying to sound normal. Madison looked like a princess. "The flowers were—" "Mom," I interrupted, "you don't have to do this. I know this is awkward for you." She sighed. "I just hate that you're not here. It doesn't feel right." "Did she mention me at all?" I couldn't help asking. There was a telling pause. "She asked if I'd spoken to you today. And?" "I told her I had texted you this morning to check in." Another pause. Derek was standing right there. "He said it was good you respected their wishes and didn't try to cause a scene." The casual cruelty of his comment made my eyes sting with fresh tears. As if I would ever do anything to ruin Madison's day. "I know, honey. I know." Mom's voice softened. "I should get back. Derek's mother has been watching me like a hawk all day. I'll call you tomorrow, okay?" After we hung up, I turned off my phone, unable to bear any more glimpses of the celebration I'd been deemed too dramatic to attend. I opened a bottle of wine and fell asleep on the couch, a photo album of Madison and me as children open on my lap. The next morning, I dragged myself to school, forcing a bright smile for my third graders while feeling hollow inside. I avoided the faculty lounge, not wanting to answer questions about the wedding. It wasn't until 3 days later, while eating lunch alone in my classroom, that my coworker Jessica burst in, her eyes wide. "Brooke, have you seen it?" she asked, clutching her phone. "Seen what?" "The video. From Madison's wedding. It's all over Twitter and Facebook." She hesitated, her expression shifting to concern. "It's bad, Brooke." My heart pounding, I took the phone from her outstretched hand. The video had been posted to a popular wedding-shaming account, with the caption, "Groom slaps bride at reception guests shocked." It already had over 2 million views. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. The footage was shaky, clearly taken surreptitiously by a guest. It showed Madison and Derek at the head table during the reception. They appeared to be having an intense discussion, Madison looking upset and Derek gesturing emphatically. The audio was poor, but I could make out Derek saying something about Madison embarrassing him. She responded, her words inaudible but her body language defensive. Then it happened. Madison turned away from him, apparently trying to end the conversation, and Derek grabbed her arm, spinning her back to face him. When she tried to pull away, his hand flew up and struck her across the face with enough force that she stumbled backward. The collective gasp from the guests was audible, followed by shocked exclamations. Madison's hand flew to her cheek, mascara-streaked tears streaming down her face. Derek's parents immediately rushed over, his father standing between them and his mother, attempting to usher Madison away from the scene. The video ended with Derek's father addressing the stunned guests, saying something about too much champagne and a misunderstanding, while Madison was led away, her bridal gown trailing behind her. I felt physically ill, my lunch threatening to come back up as I watched the footage again and again. My worst fears confirmed in the most public, humiliating way possible. My beautiful, vibrant sister being struck by the man who had vowed just hours earlier to love and cherish her. "Are you okay?" Jessica asked, her hand on my shoulder. I wasn't. I couldn't speak, couldn't process the swirl of emotions. horror at what Madison had experienced, rage toward Derek, guilt that I hadn't somehow prevented this, and yes, a tiny, shameful part of me felt vindication that I had been right about him all along, a thought that immediately made me hate myself. The video was everywhere. News outlets picked it up, running stories about wedding night horror and bride's dream turned nightmare. Online forums debated whether the slap was an isolated incident or evidence of ongoing abuse. Derek's investment firm issued a statement that they were investigating the situation. Social media exploded with outrage, with number justice for Madison trending by that evening. All I could think about was Madison. Where was she? Was she safe? Had she left Derek? Or was she somewhere with him, isolated and vulnerable? I had to find her. Had to let her know that despite everything, I was here for her. That she wasn't alone. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone and called her number for the first time in months. The call went straight to voicemail. Madison, it's me. I've seen the video. Please call me back. I don't care about anything that happened between us. I just need to know you're safe. I love you. I sent text messages that delivered but weren't read. I emailed both her personal and work accounts. Nothing. With growing desperation, I called our mother, who answered in a hushed voice. Mom, where is she? Have you talked to her? I demanded without preamble. Brooke, calm down. She's fine. Mom's voice had that placating tone she used when trying to smooth over unpleasantness. Fine? A video of her husband hitting her is viral on the internet. How can she possibly be fine? Mom sighed. That video doesn't show the whole story. They were both drinking. It wasn't as bad as it looked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you seriously defending him right now? He hit her, Mom, in public, on their wedding day. I'm not defending anyone, she said defensively. I'm just saying these things are complicated. They had a fight. Couples fight. Couples argue. They don't hit each other. I was nearly shouting now. Where is she? She's with Derek, Mom admitted reluctantly. They're working things out. My blood ran cold. Working things out? Mom, this is serious. This is how abuse starts, or rather, how it escalates. Because I guarantee this isn't the first time. You don't know that, Mom insisted. Madison says it was a terrible mistake. Derek feels awful. They just need some privacy right now. Has she called you? Have you actually spoken to her? I pressed. A telling pause. Derek called. He said they're taking some time away from everything while this blows over. That was all I needed to hear. Derek was controlling the narrative, isolating Madison even from her family during the most vulnerable moment of her life. It was textbook abuse. Mom, please, I begged. Tell me where they are. I need to talk to her directly. I promised I wouldn't tell anyone, she hedged. They're being hounded by the media. I changed tactics. Remember when Dad left? Remember how you fell apart and I was the one who held everything together? I was 15, Mom. I did that because I love this family. Now I'm asking you to trust me. Madison needs help, not privacy. After a long silence, Mom finally spoke. I can't tell you where they are, but I can give you Claire's number. Madison's old roommate? She was at the wedding. Maybe she knows more. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was a start. I called Claire immediately, and thankfully, she answered. Brooke? Oh my God, I've been trying to get your number, Claire said, sounding relieved. I was going to find you on social media, but I wasn't sure if you'd remember me. Of course I remember you, I said quickly. Claire, what happened? Were you there when? Yes, she said grimly. And it was even worse than what's in the video. Derek had been drinking since before the ceremony. He was furious because Madison spent too long talking to his boss's son during dinner. Called her attention-seeking, flirtatious, embarrassing. That doesn't sound like Madison at all, I said. It's not. She was just being her usual friendly self. But Derek, Claire hesitated. This isn't the first time he's been like this, Brooke. The whole weekend, he was controlling everything she did, who she talked to, what she ate, when she smiled. It was creepy. A few of us tried to get her alone to ask if she was okay, but he was always there. Did anyone try to stop him? after he hit her. I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. His best man and father intervened. They took him outside while his mother hustled Madison away. The DJ started playing loud music. The wedding planner announced it was time for the cake cutting, trying to distract everyone. Claire's voice broke. I tried to follow Madison to make sure she was okay, but Derek's mother blocked me, said she needed family only, as if that woman would protect her from her precious son. I said bitterly. Have you heard from Madison since? No, she's not answering calls or texts. Her Instagram has been set to private, and her Facebook seems deactivated. Claire paused. Brooke, I'm really worried. This isn't just a bad fight. The way he was with her all weekend, it was scary. I know, I said grimly. I've been trying to warn her about him for years. Armed with Claire's account and growing more concerned by the minute, I decided to drive to Madison and Derek's apartment. It was a sleek high-rise in the financial district that I'd visited only once, when they first moved in. The doorman recognized me. We looked enough alike to be obviously related, but shook his head when I asked to go up. I'm sorry, Miss Miller. Miss Madison and Mr. Williams haven't been home in several days. Do you know where they went? I asked desperately. He hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that information. But he looked around to make sure no one was listening. There was a disturbance the night they returned from the wedding. Police were called. My heart sank. Police? Was Madison hurt? I don't know details, ma'am. But they left separately. Mr. Williams came back the next morning, packed some bags, and left again. I thanked him and returned to my car, immediately calling the local police department. After being transferred multiple times and providing Madison's information, I finally got confirmation that officers had responded to a domestic disturbance call at their address the night after the wedding. No arrests were made. The parties separated voluntarily. No further details could be provided. Frustrated and increasingly frantic, I drove to the nearest police station to file a missing person report. The officer at the desk listened sympathetically but shook his head when I finished my story. I understand your concern, ma'am. But your sister left with her husband voluntarily. There's no evidence she's being held against her will. But the video? We're aware of the video, he said. Unfortunately, unless your sister herself files a complaint, or there's direct evidence of kidnapping or false imprisonment, we can't classify this as a missing person case. So a man can hit his wife on camera, isolate her from family, and that's perfectly legal? I demanded. The officer's expression softened slightly. I didn't say it was right, just that our hands are tied legally. If you can bring your sister in to make a statement, we can help her get a restraining order, connect her with resources. I left the station feeling defeated but not ready to give up. Back at home, I tried Madison's number again. This time, someone answered. But it wasn't Madison. Brooke. Derek's voice was coldly polite. I thought you might be calling. Where is my sister? I demanded. Put her on the phone right now. Madison doesn't want to talk to you. She's upset that you're trying to interfere in our marriage. Marriage? I laughed bitterly. You hit her on your wedding day. In front of everyone. It's all over the internet. A regrettable incident that's been blown completely out of proportion, he said smoothly. We're working through it. Together. Without outside interference. Let me speak to her, I insisted. That's not going to happen. Madison has asked for space from toxic influences. You should respect her wishes. Those aren't her wishes, they're yours, I said. You've been isolating her from everyone who cares about her since day one. Always so dramatic, Brooke. Derek sighed. This is exactly why Madison didn't want you at our wedding. Always making everything about you. This isn't about me. It's about my sister's safety. Madison is perfectly safe, he said. We're at my family's lake house, taking time to heal as a couple. If you continue harassing us, I'll be forced to take legal action. Do I make myself clear? The call ended abruptly. I stared at the phone, Derek's threat ringing in my ears. His family's lake house. That was something. But which lake? Where? Just as I was contemplating this, Mom called. Derek just phoned me, she said, sounding upset. He said you're harassing them, that Madison is distraught because of your interference. Mom, he's manipulating you, I said desperately. This is what abusers do. They isolate their victims, control who they talk to, twist everything around so they're the victim. He said they're at the lake house to work through their issues in private. That we need to give them space. Did you speak to Madison? I asked pointedly. Well, no, Mom admitted. Derek said she was resting. But nothing, Mom. Your daughter's husband hit her, publicly humiliated her, and now has her isolated somewhere, not allowing her to speak to her own family. How are you not terrified right now? Mom was silent for a long moment. The lake house is in Lakeside County, she finally said. Near Pine Point. That's all I know. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I thanked her and immediately began researching the area. Lakeside County was about 3 hours away, a popular vacation area with dozens of private lakefront properties. Finding one specific lake house would be like finding a needle in a haystack, but I had to try. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Lakeside County, with only a vague plan to somehow locate the Williams family lake house. It was a fool's errand, I knew, but I couldn't sit at home doing nothing while Madison remained under Derek's control. After hours of driving around, asking at local businesses if anyone knew the Williams family or their property, I was about to give up when I stopped at a small convenience store for coffee. The elderly cashier noticed my exhausted, desperate state. You look like you've lost something precious, she commented kindly. Something in her grandmotherly concern broke through my defenses, and to my embarrassment, I burst into tears, the stress of the past days finally overwhelming me. Through my sobs, I explained the situation, my sister, the abusive husband, my desperate search. The Williams Lake House? She repeated when I managed to compose myself. Big white place with blue shutters down on Crescent Cove? Had a wedding reception there last summer? Hope surged. That sounds right. Do you know where it is exactly? She gave me directions, but her expression was troubled. Honey, be careful. That family has money and influence around here. People tend to look the other way when there's trouble. Armed with a cashier's directions, I drove to Crescent Cove. As I approached the area she'd described, I noticed a luxury SUV Derek's car parked in the driveway of a large white lake house with blue shutters. My heart raced. Madison was here. So close, yet still unreachable. I parked down the road and watched the house, trying to decide my next move. Should I march up to the door and demand to see her? Call the police again now that I had a specific location? As I debated, I noticed movement, Derek emerging from the house, getting into his car, driving away, alone. This was my chance. I waited until his car disappeared around a bend, then drove quickly to the house. With shaking hands, I approached the door and knocked. No answer. I knocked louder, calling Madison's name. Still nothing. Walking around to the back of the house, I peered through windows, seeing no signs of life. Had they left together? Was I too late? Just as despair began to set in, I noticed the small guest cottage behind the main house. And there, through the window, I saw a figure with familiar blonde hair, sitting motionless on a sofa. Madison. I needed to act fast. Derek could return any minute. I raced to the guest cottage door and knocked urgently. Madison? It's Brooke. Please open up. No response. But I could hear movement inside. I know you're in there. I just want to make sure you're okay. Derek's gone. It's just me. After what felt like an eternity, the door opened a crack. Madison peered out, and the sight of her made my breath catch. Her left eye was swollen, a fading yellowish-purple bruise visible despite her attempt to cover it with makeup. Her lip was split at the corner. But worst of all was the emptiness in her eyes. My vibrant, spirited sister looked like a shell of herself. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, glancing nervously over my shoulder. Derek will be back soon. He just went for groceries. Then we don't have much time. Let me in, Maddie, please. She hesitated, then stepped back, allowing me inside. The cottage was small but luxurious, a living area with expensive furniture, a kitchenette, and a door I assumed led to a bedroom. Madison's designer suitcase sat open, clothes spilling out as if she had packed in a hurry. "How did you find me?" she asked, hugging herself protectively. "It doesn't matter. What matters is getting you out of here." I stepped toward her, but she flinched away. "Madison, look at me. What he's doing to you is abuse. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse." "You don't understand," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's complicated." "There's nothing complicated about someone hitting you," I countered gently. "On your wedding day, in front of witnesses." Tears welled in her eyes. "He said it was my fault, that I embarrassed him, that I flirted with his boss's son. And you believe that?" She didn't answer directly. "He says he loves me, that he lost control for a moment because he loves me so much, it drives him crazy sometimes." "That's not love, Madison. That's control. That's abuse." I took a deep breath. "The doorman at your apartment told me police were called the night after your wedding. What happened?" Madison sank onto the sofa, looking defeated. "We got home from the reception. Everyone was talking about the video. Someone had already posted it online. Derek was furious, said I had humiliated him, that I should have covered for him better afterward. He started throwing things, breaking our wedding gifts. I locked myself in the bathroom and called 911. My heart ached for her. Why didn't you leave with the police?" "His parents showed up. His dad's a retired judge, you know. They convinced the officers it was just post-wedding stress. Derek apologized, cried, promised it would never happen again." She touched her bruised eye. "The next morning, I told him I wanted to stay with Mom for a while. That's when he..." Her voice trailed off. "That's when he gave you that black eye," I finished for her. "Oh, Maddie. He brought me here afterward. Said we needed privacy to work on our marriage. Took my phone. He has a new one for me, but he keeps it with him. Checks all my calls and messages." I felt sick. "How long have you been here?" 5 days. Derek goes to work in the city some days. His mother comes to keep me company when he's gone. Today's the first day I've been alone." She looked up at me, fear evident in her eyes. "You have to go, Brooke. If he finds you here." Instead of leaving, I took out my phone and showed her the screen. "I'm taking pictures of your injuries. We're going to need them." "No!" She covered her face. "I can't. He'll kill me." "He might anyway if you stay," I said bluntly. "Madison, this is textbook abuse. It's only going to escalate. Where would I even go? What would I do? My face is all over the internet. I can't go back to work like this. I can't." "You'll stay with me," I said firmly. "We'll figure everything else out later. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe." A vehicle door slammed outside. Madison's eyes widened in terror. "It's him. You need to hide." "I'm not hiding," I said, standing my ground. "I'm taking you with me. Please," she begged. "He has a gun, Brooke. In the bedside drawer. He's shown it to me, said he'd use it if anyone tried to come between us." The front door of the main house opened and closed. Derek's voice called out, "Madison? I'm back!" Madison pushed me toward the small bathroom. "Hide. Please. I'll handle this." Against my better judgment, I slipped into the bathroom, leaving the door cracked. I could hear Derek entering the cottage, setting down grocery bags. "Who were you talking to?" His voice was suspiciously calm. "No one," Madison replied quickly. "Just the TV." "The TV isn't on, Madison." A pause. "I was on the phone with Mom." "With what phone?" His voice hardened. "You're lying to me." Again. I heard movement. Then Madison's frightened voice. "Derek, you're hurting me. Please let go." That was it. I couldn't hide while he hurt my sister again. I burst out of the bathroom. "Get your hands off her." Derek's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing when he saw me. He had Madison by the wrist, twisting it at an awkward angle. He released her with a shove that sent her stumbling backward. "Well, well." The jealous sister finally shows up. His voice was eerily controlled. Breaking and entering is a crime, Brooke. So is trespassing. Domestic violence is a worse one, I countered, moving to stand between him and Madison. We're leaving. Now. Derek laughed, a chilling sound. You always were delusional. Madison isn't going anywhere. Tell her, honey. I turned to look at my sister, silently pleading with her to be brave. For a moment, she looked terrified, frozen. Then something shifted in her eyes. I'm going with Brooke, she said quietly, but firmly. Derek's facade of calm cracked. After everything I've done for you, the lifestyle I've given you, you ungrateful bitch. He lunged toward us, but I was ready. I'd taken self-defense classes after being mugged in college, and muscle memory kicked in. I blocked his advance with a sharp jab to the solar plexus, then grabbed Madison's hand. Run! Now! We bolted for the door, but Derek recovered quickly, grabbing Madison's hair and yanking her backward. She screamed in pain. I turned and, without thinking, grabbed the nearest object, a heavy crystal vase, and swung it at him. It connected with his shoulder, causing him to release Madison with a howl of pain. We made it out the door and were halfway to my car when Derek emerged from the cottage, his face contorted with rage. You're dead! Both of you! He disappeared back inside, and my blood ran cold, remembering Madison's words about the gun. Get in! I screamed, fumbling with my keys. We were just pulling away when the cottage door banged open again. But instead of Derek with a weapon, a police cruiser pulled into the driveway, lights flashing. The local deputy stepped out, hand on his holster. Later, we learned that the convenience store cashier, bless her heart, had called in a welfare check after I'd left, concerned about my story and the Williams family's reputation. The timing couldn't have been better. Derek emerged from the cottage, instantly transforming into the charming, controlled man he presented to the world. Officer, thank goodness you're here. This woman, he pointed at me, broke into our property and assaulted me. My wife and I would like to press charges. But the deputy wasn't buying it. He took one look at Madison's bruised face, her trembling form, and turned back to Derek. Sir, I'm going to need everyone to step away from each other while I sort this out. What followed was tense but ultimately decisive. Madison, finding courage I had always known she possessed, showed the officer her injuries, told him about the wedding video, the isolation, the threats. I provided the photos I'd taken minutes earlier. Derek's story quickly unraveled, especially when the deputy discovered a handgun in his waistband, a violation of his concealed carry permit. Derek was taken in for questioning, and a temporary restraining order was issued on the spot. Madison and I gave statements at the local sheriff's office, where a victim's advocate was called in to help navigate next steps. By nightfall, we were in my car, heading back to the city, Madison quiet but resolute beside me. I tried to call you, she said suddenly as we crossed the county line. The night before the wedding, I had decided to call it off. I knew something was wrong, that you were right about him. But he caught me with the phone. Said if I didn't go through with the wedding, he'd make sure Mom lost her house. He knows people at her mortgage company. Tears streamed down my face as I reached for her hand. I'm so sorry, Maddie. I should have tried harder to reach you. No, she squeezed my hand. You did everything right. I was the one who pushed you away, who chose him over my own sister. Can you ever forgive me? There's nothing to forgive, I said firmly. You were a victim of abuse, and now you're a survivor. For the first time since I'd found her, Madison smiled, a small, tentative thing, but genuine. We had a long road ahead, but in that moment, I knew we would travel it together. The following weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, therapy appointments, and rebuilding. Madison moved into my spare bedroom, initially spending most of her time sleeping or staring blankly at the wall. The bruises on her face faded, but the emotional wounds ran deeper than I had imagined. Derek was charged with assault, illegal possession of a firearm, and violating the temporary restraining order when he showed up at my condo 3 days after we returned. The security footage from my building showing him attempting to break in was damning evidence that finally convinced the judge to deny bail. Still, his family's money and connections meant he had top-tier legal representation fighting every charge. Madison alternated between moments of clarity and strength and periods of self-doubt and fear. Maybe if I had been a better wife, she whispered one night as we sat on my balcony. Maybe if I hadn't talked so long with Jason at the reception. Stop, I said firmly. Derek would have found another reason. Abusers always do. This wasn't about anything you did wrong. This was about his need for control. I took a leave of absence from teaching to support Madison through this period. My principal, a domestic violence survivor herself, was extraordinarily understanding. Take the time you need, she told me. Your sister needs you now more than you need this job. While Madison focused on healing, I channeled my energy into building a case against Derek. I created a detailed timeline of his abuse, connecting with Claire and other witnesses from the wedding. I spent hours researching domestic violence cases, learning about restraining orders, gathering evidence. I became Madison's advocate, her shield, her voice when she couldn't find her own. But the most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. After hearing about Madison's situation, one of my students' mothers, who worked as a paralegal, suggested I try to find Derek's ex-girlfriends. Abusers have patterns, she explained. If you can show this wasn't an isolated incident, it strengthens your sister's case tremendously. I started with social media, searching for women tagged in photos with Derek before he met Madison. I created a private account and carefully reached out, explaining the situation without revealing too many personal details. Most didn't respond. Some blocked me immediately, but 3 women replied. The first, Alicia, had dated Derek for 8 months 3 years earlier. I still have nightmares, she wrote. He never hit me, but the emotional abuse was constant. He controlled what I wore, who I spoke to. When I finally broke up with him, he stalked me for weeks. The second, Tiffany, had a similar story, but with an escalation to physical violence. He pushed me once during an argument. When I threatened to leave, he cried, begged for forgiveness, said he'd kill himself if I left. I stayed another 6 months before I finally escaped. The third woman, Rachel, had the most disturbing account. She had been briefly engaged to Derek 5 years ago. He seemed perfect at first, charming, successful, attentive. Then he started isolating me from friends and family, checking my phone, my emails. The first time he hit me was 3 months in. I made excuses. He was stressed about work. I had provoked him. Classic victim mentality. When he put me in the hospital with a falling accident, my brother finally convinced me to leave. I moved to another state, changed my number. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since. Armed with these testimonies, I went back to the prosecutor handling Madison's case. The pattern was clear. The escalation evident. Derek wasn't just an angry husband who had lost control once. He was a calculated abuser with a history of violence against women. Madison was making progress too. Her therapist, Dr. Levine, specialized in trauma and domestic abuse recovery. During their 3rd session, Madison asked me to join them. I want to tell you something, she said, her voice stronger than I had heard it in months. Something I haven't been able to admit to myself until now. Dr. Levine nodded encouragingly. The night before the wedding, Madison began when Derek caught me trying to call you. I was going to ask you to help me get away. I knew by then that something was very wrong. I'd found emails on his computer angry, threatening messages to Rachel, his ex-fiancée. I confronted him, and she took a deep breath. He choked me until I almost passed out. Said if I ever mentioned her name again, next time, he wouldn't stop. I fought back tears, imagining my sister going through that terror alone. Why didn't you tell anyone? Run away? He said he had people watching Mom's house, your apartment, that if I tried to leave, you both would suffer. She looked down at her hands. I convinced myself it was just pre-wedding stress. That once we were married, things would improve. I know how stupid that sounds. Not stupid, Dr. Levine said gently. It's a common response to trauma bonding. The isolation, the threats, the alternating cruelty and kindness, they're textbook tactics abusers use to maintain control. Madison nodded. The worst part is, I really believed I deserved it. That I wasn't good enough, smart enough, pretty enough. He spent 2 years telling me those things, and I eventually believed him. And now? I asked softly. A spark of the old Madison flashed in her eyes. Now I'm angry. I want him to face consequences. I want other women to know what he is, so they don't fall into the same trap. That conversation marked a turning point. Madison began actively participating in building the case against Derek. She gave a full statement to the police, detailing every incident of abuse she could remember. She agreed to testify in court if necessary. She even decided to speak with a journalist who was covering domestic violence, sharing her story anonymously to raise awareness. As the case progressed, Derek's true character continued to reveal itself. He violated the restraining order again, sending threatening emails to Madison from a new account. His defense team tried to paint Madison as unstable, claiming she had a history of making false accusations. They even attempted to subpoena her therapy records, a move the judge thankfully blocked. Then came a critical development: the discovery of Madison's broken phone in the lake house trash. The police tech unit managed to recover deleted texts and photos that provided damning evidence of Derek's escalating abuse over the past year. The prosecutor called me late one evening. With this new evidence, plus the testimonies from the ex-girlfriends, we're confident we can get a conviction. Derek's lawyer has reached out about a potential plea deal. I relayed this information to Madison, who was sitting at my kitchen table working on a resume. Her marketing firm had been supportive in theory, but had made it clear her position wouldn't be held indefinitely. After 2 months on personal leave, she needed to find new employment. A plea deal? She repeated, setting down her laptop. What does that mean? It means he serves time, but less than, with a full conviction. You wouldn't have to testify in open court. Madison considered this. What do you think I should do? It's not my decision, I said carefully. But testimony would be hard. His lawyer would try to discredit you, make you relive every painful moment. She was quiet for a long time. I need to face him, she finally said. Not just for me, but for Alicia and Tiffany and Rachel. For every woman he might hurt in the future if he doesn't face real consequences. I couldn't have been prouder of her courage. Then that's what we'll do. The trial was scheduled for early December, 6 months after the wedding. As the date approached, Derek made one last, desperate attempt to regain control. He had his mother contact our mother, offering a substantial financial settlement if Madison would drop the charges. Mom, to her credit, didn't even entertain the offer. I failed Madison once by not seeing what was happening, she told me, her voice thick with regret. I won't fail her again. The morning of the trial, Madison stood in my living room, dressed in a simple navy suit, her hair pulled back, her face determined. The bruises had long since healed, but she carried a folder of photographs documenting them, evidence of what she had endured. Ready? I asked, grabbing my car keys. She nodded, taking a deep breath. I never thought my life would take this turn. 6 months ago, I was planning what I thought was my dream wedding. Now I'm preparing to testify against that same man in criminal court. Life is unpredictable that way, I said, hugging her. But you're not facing it alone. Not anymore. As we walked out the door together, Madison paused. Thank you, Brooke, for never giving up on me, even when I pushed you away. That's what sisters are for, I replied simply. We faced the darkness together. Hand in hand, we headed to the courthouse, ready to close this painful chapter and begin writing a new one. One defined not by fear and isolation, but by courage, truth, and the unbreakable bond between sisters. 3 months after Derek's conviction, he received 4 years for aggravated assault, with additional time for witness intimidation and weapons charges. Madison and I sat in my living room, surrounded by moving boxes. After living with me for nearly 9 months, my sister was ready for a place of her own. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked, helping her wrap a framed photo of us as children. You know you can stay as long as you need. Madison smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, something that had become more frequent lately. I'm sure. Dr. Levine says establishing independence is an important part of recovery. Besides, the apartment is only 10 minutes away, Close enough for weekly dinners. Far enough for healthy boundaries. Those boundaries had been a significant topic in our joint therapy sessions. After the trauma of Madison's relationship with Derek and our subsequent intense dependence on each other during the trial, we needed to relearn how to be sisters without becoming enmeshed or codependent. The past months had been a journey of rediscovery for Madison. After testifying against Derek, something had shifted in her. The prosecutor later told us the jury had been moved to tears by her testimony, not just the account of physical abuse, but the insidious emotional manipulation that had isolated her from everyone she loved. The most powerful moment, he said, was when she described trying to call you the night before the wedding, how he caught her and threatened your safety. It humanized everything. Derek's parents had sat stone-faced throughout the proceedings, refusing to acknowledge the evidence of their son's pattern of abuse. His mother had approached Madison outside the courtroom once, attempting to blame her for ruining their son's life. The court security officer had intervened, but not before Madison found her voice. "Your son ruined his own life," she had said calmly, "and he nearly destroyed mine. I hope someday you see the truth." It wasn't just the legal victory that had helped Madison heal. It was reconnecting with old friends, rebuilding her career, and rediscovering parts of herself that had been suppressed during her relationship with Derek. Claire had been instrumental, introducing Madison to a startup that needed a marketing consultant. The flexible contract work allowed Madison to ease back into professional life while continuing her therapy. 3 months in, they offered her a full-time position as marketing director. "I never would have applied for a director role before," Madison told me one evening. "Derek always made me doubt my capabilities. Said I was lucky to have the job I had. And now?" I prompted. "Now I know I'm damn good at what I do," she said with a confidence I hadn't seen in years. The CEO said my campaign ideas were revolutionary. His exact word. There were still difficult days. Madison sometimes woke from nightmares, momentarily disoriented and terrified. Certain sounds, a door slamming, glass breaking, could trigger a panic attack. But she had developed coping mechanisms, grounding techniques that Dr. Levine had taught her. We had also attended a support group for domestic violence survivors and their families. It was there that Madison met Eliza, a woman in her 40s who had left an abusive marriage after 20 years. They formed an immediate bond, with Eliza becoming something of a mentor to Madison. "She showed me that survival is just the beginning," Madison explained. "After that comes thriving." Our relationship with Mom had evolved too. Initially defensive about not recognizing Derek's abuse, she had eventually acknowledged her failure to protect her daughter. "I wanted so badly for Madison to have what I never did: financial security. A successful husband, that I ignored all the warning signs," she admitted during a particularly emotional family therapy session. Madison had forgiven her, understanding that Derek had manipulated everyone around him. "He was skilled at presenting himself as perfect," she said. "I fell for it too." Now, as we packed Madison's belongings for her move, I marveled at her resilience. She had transformed from a traumatized victim to a powerful advocate, even speaking at a local college about recognizing the signs of abuse. The wedding video that had once humiliated her had become a teaching tool, showing others that domestic violence can happen to anyone, regardless of education, social status, or family background. "I have something for you," I said, handing her a small gift bag. A housewarming present. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 2 intertwined hearts. "It's beautiful," Madison said, slipping it onto her wrist. "Read the inscription," I urged. She turned the hearts over to reveal the words "Sisters by birth, friends by choice" engraved on the back. "Because that's what we are now," I explained. "We've both changed so much this past year. We're not just sisters by default anymore. We've chosen this relationship, rebuilt it from the ground up." Madison hugged me fiercely. "Best choice I ever made." That evening, we celebrated Madison's new beginning with a small gathering at her apartment. Claire was there, along with Eliza from the support group, my principal who had been so understanding about my leave of absence, and a few other friends who had stood by us through the ordeal. Mom brought her famous lasagna, and we toasted with sparkling cider as Madison officially began this new chapter. As the party wound down, Madison and I stepped onto her small balcony, looking out at the city lights. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been?" she asked quietly. "If I had listened to you about Derek from the beginning, if you had been at the wedding." I considered this. Sometimes. But then I remember something Dr. Levine said in one of our sessions. "We can't change the past, only learn from it." And we have, Madison said with certainty. Both of us. It was true. Through this painful journey, I had learned to trust my instincts, to speak up even when it might cause conflict, to fight fiercely for those I loved. Madison had learned her own worth, how to recognize manipulation, how to stand firm in her truth even when others tried to silence her. "I know one thing for sure," I said, putting my arm around her shoulders. "I'm never letting anyone come between us again. Not even when I start dating again?" Madison teased. Dating was a sensitive subject. She wasn't ready yet. Might not be for a long time, but it was progress that she could joke about it. Especially then, I laughed. "Your future partners will have to pass the Brooke test first. And they'll be better people for it," she said, leaning her head against my shoulder. As we stood there together, I thought about how far we had come. From the horrifying moment I'd seen that wedding video, to this peaceful evening celebrating new beginnings. From estrangement to the deepest kind of understanding. From broken to healing. The journey wasn't over recovery, never followed a straight line, but we would continue it together, supporting each other through whatever challenges lay ahead. Because that's what real love looked like, not control or possession, but freedom, respect, and unwavering support, even in the darkest times. If you've ever supported someone through trauma or abuse, or needed that support yourself, I hope our story reminds you that healing is possible, that speaking your truth, even when it's frightening, can lead to freedom, that real love lifts you up instead of tearing you down. If you're in a situation like Madison's right now, please know you're not alone. There are people who will believe you, support you, and help you find your way back to yourself. If you can, reach out to a trusted friend, family member, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Your story isn't over yet. If this story touched you in any way, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of survival and resilience. Share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. And let me know in the comments, what helped you or someone you love find strength during difficult times? Your experiences might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for listening, for caring, and for being part of our healing journey.